Hello, everyone, and welcome to another community conversation on the health crisis in
of personnel.
That's a great
Another
question,
element
and I would
is
direct them to the
thinking outside the box, trying to come up with ways
And
of
as
moving.
you already mentioned, the city is
Let's try to keep these numbers from doubling.
at over 33%.
Hope you're watching at home.
First, I want to say thank you for inviting me to the
Hello,
show.
everyone, and welcome to another community conversation on Facebook Live. I'm Mayor Eric Pappenfuss, and welcome. Today's topic is planning and affordable housing in the city of Harrisburg. We're going to talk about issues that are absolutely critical to the future of our city. And we are joined today by four terrific guests from the Harrisburg Housing Authority. We have their executive director, Sengor Mans. And he's going to be talking along with Adam Rosa from Collabo, who will be giving a presentation on some exciting new planning concepts for South Harrisburg. We also have Jeffrey Knight, who is the city planning director, and Nona Watson, who is the city's director of community and economic development. So they will be coming up here shortly. I wanted to start by saying thank you to Asher and Moman for the brand new introduction for our community conversations. Got a chance to see that, and I hope you all did as well. It's pretty exciting. We have now done over 30 hours of live conversations since the beginning of the pandemic, and there was a lot of footage to choose from and a lot of great things. And we're going to keep this up. Next week, we're going to be talking about the fall, leaf season, street sweeping, and we're going to get joined by our friends from BioBot and CRW to talk a little bit about the exciting wastewater data that we've been receiving recently. I'm very pleased to announce that we got our strongest wastewater results yet for the city of Harrisburg, showing a consistent pattern of decreasing prevalence of the virus in our wastewater for the region, going all the way back to July and continually persisting. Really our lowest results yet, which is good. And if you're wondering why I'm dressed down for today's community conversation, I am dressed down because today was Bike to Work week, and yes, indeed, I bike to work. In fact, we have the bike here in the studio, and it looks like we've got a little bit of video. Look, there I am with City Project Director Ambrose Buck. And we rode from the city line all the way down along the new Sharrows on 6th Street. Got a chance to see some exciting new things, including the brand new historic marker for Caleb Jackson at Jackson Square that's going to be unveiled officially this weekend by Historic Harrisburg. So congratulations to Caleb Jackson, the Jackson family, to Historic Harrisburg. That was exciting. We also saw some of the pedestrian improvements that have been made and were actually being made at the very moment we crossed over Foster Street. We're putting in new tunnel visors on the lights there. And if you don't know what a tunnel visor is, I found out what it was today as they were putting them up. It basically makes it harder to see the signal from points other than directly head on with the signal, which should make it safer for pedestrians, people trying to beat certain lights or anticipate certain light cycles, or being at different intersections and seeing too far ahead. That was happening. There are also some brand new pedestrian signs, yield to pedestrian signs that have been put up, a lot of improvements. And of course, there's the new bike lane along 6th Street along the Market, which really has been a wonderful addition. It was a smooth ride, enjoyed the whole thing, and biked right here into the studio. I know there's some in Harrisburg that feel, why are we doing this? Why are we investing in bike infrastructure? We had a very successful pop-up meeting with residents earlier this week to basically unveil and release the new plans for State Street, which also includes a series of bike lines on other sides of the street. And it's partly because, as part of Vision Zero, we can do these bike lanes and we can make things safer for pedestrians and everyone. It's really truly a win-win across the board. I'll say the new bike lane on 6th Street actually ended up resulting in more parking spaces for residents, as well as improved crossing points for school students there at Ben Franklin and for visitors to the Broad Street Market. So there's really no negative side effect. We're doing a lot with just paint and good organization, the occasional delineator post. And the bike lanes on State Street, for instance, are going to simply make it a shorter distance for pedestrians to have to cross that street. And the shorter the distance, the less likely you're going to have conflict between pedestrians and vehicles. And that, coupled with all the other improvements we're doing, better lighting, new crosswalks, et cetera, is going to make for a safer Harrisburg. It's all part of Vision Zero, and it's coming together. So I wanted to give people an update on that. I also wanted to take a moment and let you know that we had such fun with our movie nights at the band shell that our Parks and Rec team has decided to extend those into the end of September and into early October. So I wanted to let everyone know that we're going to do an encore presentation of Black Panther coming up again on September 25th. And then we have Moana on October 2nd. I see the graphic there now. And Zootopia on October 9th. All really sort of fun movies. Now, they've been well attended. We encourage people to wear masks, practice social distancing, but you can do it out at the band shell in Reservoir Park. And I'm not going to reveal what the secret surprise is going to be at this time. But if you come out, we have some special plans to add some fun amenities for the whole family for movie nights. So come on out. Again, September 25th is Black Panther, the encore, October 2nd, Moana, and October 9th, Zootopia. Also wanted to put in a plug for completing and filling out the census. This is more important than ever before. I got the latest census results. And since we reported this last week, we ticked up about 0.5%, and we are now at a current response rate for Harrisburg City of 47.6%, which is unfortunately beyond not close to the response rate of 2010, and which was 57%, and there's not too much time remaining. I wanted to encourage everybody not only to respond to the census online, but also wanted to remind people the phone number. And I brought the phone number this time. It is 844-330-2020. So it ends 2020. You can call toll free, and you can get started responding to the census just by phone. There's also language support. So no matter what language you speak, there will be somebody there to help you and make sure that you're counted. Again, census, so important to our funding, not just for the city of Harrisburg, but for the Housing Authority, for all entities. It is important that we have the accurate numbers so that we can make sure that we receive the most federal dollars to benefit our communities. So today we are talking about planning and the future of Harrisburg, and at the heart of that is a belief that we need to do more in terms of affordable housing in our city. And I'm delighted to start with Sengor Mans with the Harrisburg Housing Authority, because we are partnering on a planning grant for South Harrisburg that would really be transformative. And at the heart of it is making sure that we have quality housing stock, which is affordable and is different though than the current layout that we have. So Sengor, let's talk about these plans in a big general sense. Why is it important? And let's talk about this partnership that we have now between the Housing Authority and the city as we move forward.
Sure, absolutely, and thank you, Mayor, for inviting us to speak today. As you just pointed out, my name is Sengor Mans. I'm the Chief Executive Officer with the Harrisburg Housing Authority. And one of our partners in this planning process, as you just pointed out, is the city of Harrisburg. So thank you for that, Mayor. And another one of our partners in this planning process is Collabo. Mr. Adam Rosa, who's a principal with Collabo, is going to talk about some of the details of this planning grant that we've made a request to HUD actually just last Monday. But before I get into that, I just wanted to, in the context of kind of why this is important and other things that are significant to the issue of affordable housing, at least in the city of Harrisburg, is I wanted to give some context as it relates to Harrisburg, the Harrisburg Housing Authority. And so the Harrisburg Housing Authority, as many of you probably know, was created in 1938, or at least it was enabled in 1938. It was created by the city. So we've been around for quite some time. We've been around for over 80 years. As a part of the creation of the Housing Authority, there was then the creation of housing, in particular public housing. And the South Harrisburg site, which most folks understand, has Hall Manor and Hoover Homes in it. Those two sites were built early as well. Those two sites were built, Hoover in 1941, and I believe Hall Manor in 1953. So you have a site that's over 80 years old and another site that's or 79 years old, and then another site that's a little over 60 years old, 63 years old. So you have some sites that are aged, significantly aged. The infrastructure is poor, to put it kindly, but it provides affordable housing for over 700 families. The Harrisburg Housing Authority has roughly 1,600 apartments throughout the city of Harrisburg. We represent probably about or help and serve probably about 10% of the Harrisburg community. And so that's a significant, we believe, base of citizens that need to have a quality of life that we think is important for our community to thrive. And so with the age of our south side of Harrisburg infrastructure, we believe that it's necessary for us to start focusing a lot of attention and resources on that area, in particular, how to redevelop that area in a comprehensive fashion. And so we have been fortunate over the last couple of months. HUD had released what's referred to as their Choice Neighborhood Planning Grant application process. And we thought that, you know what, this is a ripe opportunity for our institution, our organization, and the city, quite frankly, to apply for this grant through HUD. The process is extensive. The planning grant process is an extensive process, and we knew that there were practitioners out there that have significant experience in going after this type of grant. And I'm going to have Mr. Rosa talk a little bit more about that. But this is a $450,000 grant if we're successful, that allows us to use those resources to build a plan, obviously, over the next couple of years for what we want to have done in the South Harrisburg area, but also coalesce all of the stakeholders, from the residents to the school district, from the business sector to the public sector, such as the city and the CRW and Public Works, et cetera, coalesce everybody around coming up with a comprehensive plan that helps us re-energize and revitalize the South Harrisburg area. And so that's the plan in a nutshell. The more specific particulars, I'll let Mr. Rosa speak on. But this is why we think that it's important. We think that the time is now. We should not be waiting for somebody else to come and do the hard work. You know, as the saying goes, kick the can down the road. We're not built to do that. We're built to try to handle the process, or handle the problem through a comprehensive process.
Thanks, Senger. That's a great overview, and I think it sets Adam up well to take us through a bit of a presentation to talk about this, not just the application, but what it could basically mean in terms of a transformation of a large portion of South Harrisburg. So, Adam, I understand you've got a presentation that we can go through.
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen really quickly so we can get rolling. But I really wanted to thank you for allowing us this opportunity to be part of this discussion, this conversation around the important issues of affordable housing, and more than just affordable housing, but equitable development, economic development, community engagement. There's so many different elements and pieces that go into the Choice Neighborhoods program. So I'm going to give a very brief kind of overview of what it's all about, and then I'm happy to take additional questions following the presentation. So Choice Neighborhoods is HUD's place-based model for community revitalization. And previous HUD programs were really just focused on what do we do with aging and distressed affordable housing, and kind of thinking about it in a bubble. Well, choice neighborhoods is a little bit different because it really broadens the lens to think about not only the revitalization of a particular target housing site. In this case, we're looking at the Hooverter Homes site as our target site, also including Hall Manor, but doing it in the context of a larger neighborhood improvement strategy. So all of the things like parks and open space, and circulation, and bikeability and pedestrian improvements, grocery stores and healthy food and transportation and cleanliness in the community. All of those different types of things are going to be part of this larger neighborhood plan. The other kind of pillar of choice neighborhoods is the people circle, and that's really about the quality of life, not only for Harrisburg Housing Authority residents, but really residents of the entire South Harrisburg community. So there we're talking about jobs, we're talking about education, we're talking about arts and culture, security and safety, all of these different pieces that go into helping folks improve their quality of lives. So I've personally had the opportunity to work with 7 different choice neighborhoods over the last, I would say, 10 years or so. Very diverse communities from Flint, Michigan, in the north. We were working during the middle of the water crisis in Flint, and we created a plan that was really looking at turning crisis to opportunity, especially for local residents that were really suffering through that. And I've gone all the way as far south as Brownsville, Texas, which is about 4 blocks from the border with Mexico, where we had to conduct an entire two-year-long process in Spanish. And a very different kind of cultural, multinational environment in Brownsville. So the choice neighborhoods structure is not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's really how do we tailor that to work within the South Harrisburg community. So this shows the overall planning area boundaries that we've utilized to submit our application to HUD. So it's really everything south of the Capitol Beltway, all the way to the city limits with the city of Steelton. And it includes not only the Hooverter home site, which you can see outlined in yellow, but also recognizing the Hall Manor property, which is right across the street. And you can see all of the other assets and amenities and features of the neighborhood, including Foose Elementary School. You have Paxton Creek, the Capital Area Greenbelt. There's other large assisted and affordable housing properties like Harrisburg Park Apartments and Ivy Lane Apartments. So our planning process is going to include residents from this entire area. And what you're looking at overall is about 5,500 people live within this part of town. It's also a federally designated opportunity zone. So we were able to get actually a bonus point in the grant application for being in an opportunity zone. So here's a handful of photos showing you what Hooverter Homes looks like today. We needed to conduct a physical assessment of the property to qualify it as aged and distressed. The fact that it was built in 1940, 1941, it's really, it's at the end of its usable lifespan for really modern families. And it doesn't have the layout and the amenities and the features that we really want for a community. And so what Choice Neighborhoods is really looking to do is not just fix up what's there today, but really create a new dynamic of mixed income housing that looks as good or better than anything else in the rest of the city. So the choice plan, if we're awarded the grant, we'll probably hear sometime around Christmas time if we're one of the 10 successful grantees. It will seek to replace 100% of the Hooverter Homes units within the neighborhood or in other areas of opportunity or on site again, but as part of mixed income developments. And this is an image from the first choice neighborhood plan that I had an opportunity to work on in Rockford, Illinois, where we were looking at revitalizing really 1960s era public housing. And this is the first phase of the new mixed income housing for families. So you can see really high quality and attractive housing that is going to be something that's a benefit for the neighborhood and for the people that live there. This is also an asset-based planning process. We know that there are significant challenges in the community, but there are building blocks that we want to be able to leverage to make this happen. Things like the Paxton Place, which is a new affordable senior housing development on the eastern side of the neighborhood. The Capital Region Greenbelt Trail, which could be really is a wonderful amenity and could be even better connected into the community. The homes and the businesses throughout on 13th Street and on some of the other commercial corridors. The churches and the houses of worship. And then thinking about really addressing some of the key challenges, like you can see the vacant homes on 13th Street in the upper right-hand corner, some of the closed commercial spaces, and how do we activate those and bring things like healthy food to the neighborhood. So this is all going to be part of the strategy once we receive the grant. And it's all the entire process, which is going to be a 2-year-long effort, is going to be completely rooted in community engagement and resident empowerment. So these are some of the folks that I've had the chance to work with over the years on choice neighborhood planning grants. And I think one thing that I really want to point out is that we want to not only engage the folks that are typically attend meetings, but we want to reach out to people who may not be able to spend 2 hours of their evening at a large community meeting. And we're going to be very creative in how we do that. We want to put a big emphasis on engaging with the young people of South Harrisburg and getting their feedback and their input on what their neighborhood should look like and feel like and how it should be designed. And we also have the opportunity to work with a number of different partners to really connect the dots and help to bring additional services into the neighborhood. So it's not just going to be a brick and mortar, how do we replace that housing, but it's a very comprehensive effort overall. We have dedicated a portion of our budget in the grant to hiring community ambassadors from the South Harrisburg neighborhood that will be provided a stipend for their effort and their energy and become part of our team, essentially, to help us do even deeper and more meaningful engagement, and also to really help to become the champions of the plan. So we're looking to hopefully, once we receive the grant, be able to select several residents from not only Hoover Homes, but from the surrounding South Harrisburg neighborhood, conduct training sessions throughout the process, and really work with those residents to make sure that the plan is authentic and equitable. So these were our community ambassadors from Brownsville, Texas, and they did such a great job. They were awarded kind of an honorary certificate from the city of Brownsville for their fantastic work on that project. And they're continuing to carry the torch. The plan is completed, but there's many things in implementation today. So another exciting piece of it is we had the opportunity to dedicate $150,000 of HUD funding and additional leverage that we were able to bring to the table from partners towards an early action project. And that's something that is intended to happen during that 2-year planning process and really to create momentum for more positive changes in the neighborhood. So the image on the top is from Huntington, West Virginia, a choice community that I worked in about a year ago. And they utilized their early action funding to renovate a vacant home of a important civil rights leader, African-American civil rights leader named Memphis Tennessee Garrison, who lived in the community. And they were stabilizing the home and renovating it in order to turn it into a community center and a small history museum to celebrate the African-American culture of that particular part of town. The image to the lower right is in Brownsville, and they took a park that was kind of a no-go zone, which had a lot of drug dealing and homeless people were sleeping there overnight and things like that. And they activated the park with events throughout the process, and they brought free Wi-Fi to the park They brought a little free library to the park, a drinking fountain to the park, and they've now made it a place where families want to gather, and it's safe, and it's an amenity for the neighborhood today. So in our grant application, we did have that opportunity to outline where we thought an early action project would make a lot of sense. And we put all of our heads together along with our partners at the city to think about potentially focusing on the 13th Street. We're calling it the 13th Street model block, which is right across the street from Hooverger Homes, and includes a kind of a mixture of different uses, from little corner stores. There's a barber shop, a smaller kind of grocery corner store on the far southern corner. There's a number of homes within the middle of that block. There's some open space. There's a small church. So we thought about dedicating our early action funding to really improving this block through a variety of different measures that will develop through the plan. So public improvements to make it safer and more welcoming, potentially facade improvements for some of these businesses and some of the homeowners to do renovations. So we're going to work with the community to really flesh that out once we receive the grant. But it's something that hopefully we can start to show some real visible progress in South Harrisburg along that initial block. And once we complete the plan, which is about a 2-year-long process, we can then take that plan and apply for what's known as an implementation grant from HUD, which can be up to about $30 million to really start to rebuild the mixed income housing, do a lot more neighborhood improvements, get those people projects going. This was the plan that I led in Flint, Michigan, and they were able to take the plan and leverage it and get that $30 million implementation grant, which is highly competitive. They only award 3 or 4 a year, but we want to, through our process, create that framework where we can be successful with or without that bigger carrot of the $30 million grant. So the overall process, this is my last slide. It's really just, it's 2 years overall, and we'll start with listening and learning, moving into visioning for the future, getting that early action project going, developing the strategies through community connections. It'll be outlined in the people, housing, and neighborhood elements. In about halfway through the second year, we'll be creating the draft plan and then the final plan at the end of year 2. So if all goes well and we're awarded the grant around Christmas time, this process would start to kick off in mid-January of 2021. So that's really where we are. We all have our fingers crossed. We think we put together a really wonderful application with the help of the city and with other partners to tell the story about why this is an area of need and why the federal government and HUD in particular should be dedicating resources to South Harrisburg. So with that, I think I'll turn it back over. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. I thought that presentation was excellent, really covered a lot of ground, and I think it's important for people to see and absorb. The city is certainly honored to be a partner here and to have committed dollars to this. And let me, and we'll take questions at the end from viewers at home. But let me just go back to Senghor for a final question before we start talking about the comprehensive plan and some initiatives for affordable housing in other parts of the city. But Senghor, one term that came up through again and again through Adam's presentation was mixed income. And can you talk a little bit about why that is an important strategy for you and why it informs the larger conversation about affordable housing?
There's been an evolution of thinking over probably about the last 20 years now, between 15 and 20 years, from HUD and other studies that have been done, that it is a better community, if you will, if that community is not relegated to just one socioeconomic status. And that is to say that it is a better learning environment. It is a better livable environment for our children and for our families. If low-income residents can live within a larger socioeconomic neighborhood. And so the concept of mixed income community 20 years ago. And so it's been welcomed by HUD, but it gets challenging at times because, of course, you have to build something that is nice enough and significantly appealing enough so that those that live or receive higher levels of income would want to live there. And so the idea is that we're going to build something that is so nice that it's indistinguishable from the market rate communities. And Adam showed a picture of one of I believe that was Illinois, Rockford, Illinois. And that's what we're looking at, is we want to have a community in which when our kids are raised in public housing, quote unquote, they won't realize that they're living in public housing. It will be indistinguishable from market rate housing, and the folks that live around them will also not understand that, you know what, the person living right next to them may be receiving public assistance or rental assistance. And we think that creates a healthier, mentally, emotionally, and physically a healthier environment for everybody, not just the kids that we serve and the families that we serve, but for everybody. And so that's not a model that Harrisburg has used historically. And quite frankly, it's not a model that a lot of housing authorities throughout Central PA have used historically. It's used in Pittsburgh, and it's used in Philadelphia, in other larger cities, but it's a model that we think is long overdue, and we'll try to, quite frankly, infuse a lot more of that in future development projects.
Yeah, that's great, Sengor. It's exactly the right model, and it's one that would really excites me. I think it excites everyone in the city. And you see it in play in Mulder Square, for instance, where the housing authority, where what was constructed by the housing authority is as quality and inviting as any other housing in the city of Harrisburg. And people's incomes can't be readily determined by the conditions of what they're living in or where they're living, which is a problem that we have now and that we're trying to address. So we'll work together on this. It's one of the reasons from a city standpoint, and we'll talk to Nona in a minute, we want to make sure that what we're doing to incentivize affordable housing is equal in every neighborhood of the city and not just in particular neighborhoods or districts. So someday, I hope we will be standing and receiving a check for $30 million, because I've never seen one of those before, but we saw one in the image there, and it does sound like there is money for this, and the planning grant is the first step. So if we work together on this, that's how we would fund a project like this. I want to turn to you, Jeffrey, because one of the questions people may be having is, how does an area plan like this or a neighborhood plan, fit with the larger comprehensive plan for the city? And this is really exactly how it should work. You have a sort of guiding document for understanding planning and development for all of Harrisburg, but then you drill down in specific areas, specific neighborhoods with more detailed plans. But let's just start with the exciting news, which is that on Thursday, just last night, the Harrisburg Planning Commission voted unanimously to adopt a new comprehensive plan and to send that plan to Harrisburg City Council for their consideration. So it's been a long time coming, and without getting into too much of the history, can you just talk a little bit about what that vote last night means and what the public will see in terms of process now between now and the end of the year?
Sure, and thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for having me on to be able to speak to this, and also being alongside these other two issues of affordable housing and the project going on down in South Harrisburg, because it does dovetail very nicely with what the comprehensive plan is going to do and will do for the city. So this week was a big week for the comprehensive plan. On Monday and Wednesday, after hours, 6:30 to 8:30, we had two webinars to discuss the information that's in the 9 chapters of the comprehensive plan, and to kind of bring the community back up to speed with the process and where it is right now. And as you noted, it has been a while, but this was a big milestone last night for the Planning Commission to take a vote and to move the document forward to the City Council. So what last night's vote does is it is the last step for the Planning Commission. So they voted to adopt the document that is on the city's website. I believe there's a link from the landing page. Adopt that document and approve it and move it forward to City Council. So there will be a presentation to City Council, which will kick off a 45-day MPC mandated public review period. We are not quite sure about when that date will be yet, but it will be relatively shortly over the next couple of weeks, because that 45-day period will kind of take us into November then. And obviously we're getting closer to the end of the year when City Council has less meetings and is dealing with things like the budget. So we want to make sure that the MPC mandated period can be covered this year. And during that time that the document is available for public review, anybody from the public is able to comment on the document, let us know what you like, what you don't like, what you think the document needs more of. The comments from the public can be sent to an email address. It is complancomments@harrisburgpa.gov. That's COMPPLANCOMMENTS@harrisburgpa.gov. And then what we'll do is we'll collect all of the comments we receive from the public, as well as maybe any internal comments we get from the administration, in addition to comments from the Dauphin County Planning Commission, the Harrisburg School District, and adjacent municipalities, who all also must receive copies of the plan for their own review. And so the last chapter that we discussed on Wednesday was the integration and implementation chapter. And that's really where a lot of what we're discussing today folds into the comprehensive plan initiative. And that's because it's meant to not only integrate the various parts of and different topical areas of the plan itself, so that it's all kind of working towards a common goal, and that the projects and investments that we make are self-reinforcing, but that they integrate with other plans kind of up and down the ladder, both the county's comprehensive plan, small area plans that we may be doing, which is what we're talking about today, as well as things like Capital Region Water's City Beautiful H2O plan. And then once you have that integration and how these work together, there's a framework for the implementation, covering whether it's citywide projects, unique to certain neighborhoods, and what type of goal and action it is, whether it's a planning document or whether it's a new investment, whether it's a capital project, things of that nature. So after the public review period, the City Council will hold a public hearing, at least one. They're free to hold more if they would like, before taking a final vote. So as I said, the 45-day public review period will carry through till sometime in November. So there will be opportunities for City Council to hold one and more if they would like, before taking a final vote by the end of the year.
Great. So for the plan for South Harrisburg that we were just talking about, we saw sort of a straight line from the planning grant to community engagement to a future proposal that would lead to hopefully federal dollars that for development of an entirely transformed community. I guess the comprehensive plan sort of works the same way. It sets the sort of stage and groundwork for the larger investment in Harrisburg, and that's why it's important. But it's a significant document. It's a lot to read. It's available on the website. People should read it and begin commenting. But let's let's try and digest it a little bit for the public. If you could sort of summarize some of the major, most important takeaways from the City of Harrisburg Comprehensive Plan, I think that would be really helpful.
Sure. I'll kind of cover a big kind of overarching goal of each chapter, of each of the 7 topical chapters. We also have an introduction chapter and then the integration implementation chapter, as I mentioned. The land use and community facilities chapter really focuses on better coordinating our land use and our transportation, kind of recognizing that those two are symbiotic, and ensuring that we're creating mixed use and mixed value communities. And you heard a bit about the mixed value with regard to housing in the discussion on the South Side project, but really mixed value with regards to economic opportunities, recreational opportunities, things of that nature. So making sure that all of our communities have kind of a node or a nexus where they have available to them all the things that they may need in their life, whether it's childcare, a laundromat, fresh food, things of that, play areas, social gathering places, and making sure that we have those kind of evenly dispersed throughout the community, so that every neighborhood really kind of has a center, and every neighborhood resident has access, easy access to those types of goods, services, and amenities. With regards to the mobility and access, the really overarching vision of that is multimodalism, and that's really focusing on getting a better balance of our transportation investments between both accommodating private vehicles, but also focusing on the needs and safety of other users like pedestrians, bicyclists, and those who are riding mass transit here in the city, and really kind of flipping the hierarchy of considerations on its head, where it's traditionally been very car focused, and now we're focusing on the most vulnerable users, which are, pedestrians first, bicyclists, mass transit users, and then going into motorists. So, that's really kind of a holistic vision. Obviously, we have our Vision Zero that's helped inform some of those projects, but it's also looking at kind of how we're designing our right-of-way space, so that it's not just based on transportation, but that we kind of look at it as community space that our residents are able to use and enjoy. With regard to the energy and utilities chapter, we have a real focus on sustainable energy development, whether that's developing kind of in-house here within the city, or working with our energy providers to ensure that we have a 100% green energy portfolio. That's obviously a big focus kind of nationally and internationally, but kind of bringing that into Harrisburg and determining how we do that in a way that's equitable for all of our residents and businesses. And then economic development. These are the 4 for the first chapter, or for the first webinar. The economic development one is really focused on expanding the economic opportunities, and a lot of that is predicated upon enhancing our educational pathways in the city, not just with the Harrisburg School District, although they're obviously a major stakeholder with regards to that, but also Harrisburg University, HAC, other sorts of job training. We have various unions here. The International Electric Workers Union established a new training center up on State Street, for example. So, filling in those gaps between our primary, secondary, and post-secondary education, and working on developing these continuing education pathways for people as they grow older, so that they can still learn new skills or enhance the skills they already have. Our Parks, Open, and Civic Space chapter is really kind of focused on, I guess as a whole, realizing the dream of the Manning Plan and of creating the city as a park. A lot of that was done during the City Beautiful movement during the turn of the 19th century. And we're fortunate to still have a lot of that, but it wasn't completed. So there are definitely some gaps to fill in, one of which, for example, would be the Paxton Creek project, and bringing some ecological functions to that corridor, as well as enhancing floodplain mitigation and hopefully bringing more multimodal amenities through a multi-use path there. And really just overall focusing on an environmental and ecological sustainability model for new development here in the city. Our historic and cultural resources, that the city obviously is the state capital, so we have a lot of unique culture with respect to government here in Harrisburg, and we obviously have a lot of long time cultural events like Capona, but we want to make sure we're not just focusing on kind of the many events that we have downtown, but that we're highlighting the culture of the various neighborhoods throughout the city of Harrisburg. And really, there's history and culture in every square foot of this city, and finding that and highlighting that and really elevating that will be a goal of the plan. And then finally, a big one, and it's what we're discussing today, housing. And really the big overarching goal of the housing chapter is to make quality, affordable housing accessible to all of our residents. And what this means is both looking at making housing more affordable, and whether that's through regulatory means such as the zoning code or the subdivision land development ordinance, or whether it's through a focus on creating a more varied type of housing stock, things like co-ops, shared housing arrangements, and making sure that we can build housing at the lowest cost, and a diverse array of housing at the lowest possible cost, because then that will turn into lower rents and mortgages available to the public.
Boy, thanks for that overview, Jeffrey. As I think people at home can tell, there's a lot of ground covered in this plan. There's a lot to digest. We haven't had a plan a comprehensive plan in Harrisburg for decades. So putting this together was a tremendous amount of work, and it has stretched on over the course of several years now. But I think the final document is certainly better because of that, better because of all the review and time and energy that so many people have put in, including the planning commissioners, which sort of painstakingly have been going over this, line by line, chapter by chapter now for quite some time. I think it is worth reminding people that the process began with a tremendous amount of public engagement and interaction, and that these concepts, whether it's multimodalism or the need for affordable housing or you name it, all came from the public. Can you talk just a little bit, remind people a little bit about the public outreach that went into the creation of this plan?
Sure. So a lot of the public engagement occurred during 2015, and we started on Memorial Day with a kickoff, including members of our steering committee as well as city staff being located in several locations throughout the city for events that were occurring that day. And it continued through the spring and summer as well as into the fall until December, when we held a final meeting that kind of brought everything together. And during those 7 months or so, we attended upwards of 125 different separate events in the city, whether that was a presentation to a neighborhood association, whether it was attending National Night Out, or whether it was our more formal structured meetings covering the topics of housing and transportation. We really sought to make an effort to go out into the community and to meet them in the spaces and events where they were gathering, instead of trying to make it a really formal and structured environment where we required everybody to come to us. We really wanted to go out into the community. And thanks to the volunteer efforts of city staff and of our steering committee members, we were able to do that. And that was, I think, really effective in drilling down on a lot of the different things that various neighborhoods throughout the community wanted. There were, certainly people in Uptown have different goals and needs and wants than maybe people out in East Harrisburg. And so being out in those different areas allowed us to uncover what those were and to include the feedback that we got from the community in the document.
Yeah, thanks, Jeffrey. So it's been 5 years. It's been a long process. It's been a comprehensive process, but it's going to result in a document that is absolutely important to the lives of all of our residents. And I hope people will read the plan and comment on the plan and become educated and engaged on this issue. I've been really encouraged lately by the amount of participation we've started to see in our city council meetings. We had a number. We had almost a dozen comments on a budget reallocation at the last budget or at the last Budget and Finance Committee meeting. People are engaged now, I think, in local government in ways that they perhaps haven't been for some time. So I think the fact that we're concluding this process now is really an excellent time to maximize that level of engagement. And I'm going to turn now to our economic development director, Ms. Nona Watson, who's joining us, because it's also an excellent time to coinciding with the adoption of this plan to put forth a series of ordinances and amendments and other actions that will help craft a strategy to create more affordable housing throughout the city of Harrisburg. And Nona, folks have gotten to know you a little bit throughout this crisis because you came barely had come on board, and we were hit with COVID, and a lot of what we've been doing from an economic development standpoint has been necessary, but it's been somewhat reactive to the situation we found ourselves in, trying to help people basically just get by and survive, whether it's businesses or individuals. But as you know, one of the first things we talked about when bringing you on board was that we needed a larger affordable housing strategy, and we need to make that at the forefront of our efforts as a city. And so let's just maybe you could start by just briefly addressing the issue of why affordable housing is important, and what strategies are out there in other places and other communities for improving the situation.
Good afternoon to everyone. It is a pleasure to be here today. I'm very excited to be here to talk about affordable housing. And I just want to say, first of all, thank you to you, Mayor, and thank you to City Council for making this a priority. So as we know, having proper shelter is priority for each and every one of us, whether it is in the form of temporary housing, traditional, permanent, whether it is rental or home ownership, subsidized or workforce housing, or new construction or rehab housing. We all need housing, and we need for it to be safe. We need for it to be of good quality, and we need for it to be affordable. Now, affordable housing is a complex term because everybody seems to have their own idea of what affordable housing is, and then it changes from person to person. It changes from organizations, governments, depending on what industry is defining affordable housing. But generally speaking, and according to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, if a household spends 30% or less of their gross income on housing to include utilities, their housing is considered affordable. And for homeowners, they would include mortgage, taxes, and also insurance. But if you spend more than 30%, it is considered cost burden. That means that funds that you would normally use to spend on other things that are of importance in your life, you are not spending the dollars on those things. We're trying to make ends meet out there. We're lacking in the areas of transportation, food even, and medical. And then, of course, we know what it does to our children who don't actually live in affordable housing. And we know that oftentimes it can lead to homelessness. So we also hear Another way affordable housing is used. The term affordable housing is also used in the development world. So when we hear someone say that they're going to build affordable housing, generally it is pertaining to housing for low-income households that is usually incomes of 80% or less of the area median income. So we understand that there's a great need across the United States for affordable housing. So the administration and city council are working together to increase affordable housing development here in the city, and not just the affordable housing development, but programs and services. We have also formed an affordable housing task force, and we'll work with city residents, developers, and other stakeholders to make affordable housing happen here in the city of Harrisburg. In addition, one of the other things that we're hearing every day from our service providers is that they can't find affordable housing. So one of the other things that we are doing is we're trying to connect with landlords and the service providers and create a database to help identify affordable housing for our residents here in the city. And so, Mayor, the other question you had was, what are they doing in other cities? So we did do a survey to find out what other cities are doing to promote affordable housing development. And we found that in other cities, just like in Harrisburg, developers are concerned about their return on investment when producing affordable housing. So oftentimes, they cannot get the numbers to work without tax credit, without government grants or loans, which is why many of them choose to do market rate units instead. So we know we need affordable housing units. And as it has already been said today, we know we need mixed housing throughout the city. But we have to understand that there is a need to provide tools, incentives, and alternatives to expand the participation of developers, because we do want quality. We want new construction. We want our city to grow, and we want these affordable housing units. So the administration and city council have researched various jurisdictions to see what tools are being used to encourage development of affordable housing. So some of the areas, some of the jurisdictions that we researched were Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Montgomery County, Maryland, Fremont, California, Grand Forks, North Dakota. I don't know where it is, but we researched it. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Phoenix, Arizona, Fairfax County, Virginia, San Francisco, San Diego, Austin, Texas, Santa Fe, New Mexico, and Los Angeles, California. And we just really wanted to get an idea of what's going on out there and which tools we can actually take advantage of. So one tool used is inclusionary housing, and we hear the buzz about inclusionary housing all the time, also known as inclusionary zoning. It's not a bad term. We just have to understand, how we can use it and how it can be beneficial to our city. So I'm just going to read this quick write-up about inclusionary zoning. It refers to municipal and county planning ordinances that require a given share of new construction to be affordable by people with low to moderate incomes. These ordinances seek to counter exclusionary zoning practices. I just got to read that again. These ordinances seek to counter exclusionary zoning practices, because what we know and understand that there are exclusionary zoning practices out there, and they are supported by zoning codes. So we want to counter that with inclusionary zoning, and an understanding that inclusionary zoning is both mandatory, or can be both mandatory or voluntary. So in order to encourage participation in these zoning programs, developers are awarded with incentives such as density bonus, expedited approval, and fee waivers. Density bonus is the most common form of incentive used by inclusionary housing programs. It provides an increase in allowed dwelling units per acre. So glad that Jeffrey is with us today, because I'm just reading this piece, okay? floor area ratio, and height, which generally means that more housing units can be built on a given site. So this tool helps developers afford the additional cost of incorporating affordable units into a development project. And then I just want to share with you some of the other incentives that we found out there. One is allowing affordable housing in commercial zones, reducing minimum lot sizes or setbacks, creating affordable housing districts, infill housing development, expedited permitting, waiving of impact fees, tax abatements, fees in lieu of construction, reduced parking requirements, design waivers, off-site development, and accessory dwelling units. So these are some of the other incentives that are out there that we researched, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Nona. There's so much to talk about and unpack there, and there's a lot which is going to be coming down the way for City Council to consider and our city to consider. I think it's worth just focusing on the density bonus for a moment, because I think as a task force and in conjunction with City Council, we've determined that that's one of the first initiatives that we want to put forth here. It would run concurrently with the discussion of the comprehensive plan. And it would work as you've described it. It would basically provide certain incentives to developers to add a percentage of affordable housing units to whatever project they're developing. And basically, the way it's going to be proposed in Harrisburg, and we won't go into great detail quite yet because we're still putting it together, but as we will introduce it, it will be the more affordable the units are and the more units that there are, the higher the bonus or the higher the benefit. And that benefit has to do with basically increasing the number of units you can build on the same size parcel. That's the density part of it. But there's also a potential bonus that we can offer in terms of height, in terms of stormwater, and in terms of even parking, which is something that you mentioned. So we believe that a good starting point is to try and incentivize developers by giving them a benefit for doing affordable housing. And that is a way that has been effective elsewhere. It's something that we don't currently have in our city, and it's something that we can try. I know there are a number of other strategies, and there's many other things that we can put forth. We've talked about amending our tax abatement ordinance, our LRTA, to basically allow for an exemption from certain qualifying conditions if you are doing affordable housing. We've also talked about adopting a new city ordinance for street vacations that would basically define affordable housing as a public good, which would allow for justify a street vacation and make that a regular matter of course for council's consideration. So all of this is under consideration now, and I just wanted to have you this morning sort of introduce some of that and talk to the public a little bit about what they could see and what they could expect. So I'm sure, Moment, that this conversation has probably engendered a lot of commentary, and we are all here to answer some questions.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Mayor. First question we'll toss to Sengor. Regarding the Choice Neighborhoods plan, how can people submit input or feedback on that plan?
Thank you for the question. So what will happen is once we hopefully get the grant, we're going to stay positive. When we get the grant, then at that point we'll have a robust, engaged process. So we will be putting information on our website, putting information on Facebook, giving information to the city so that the city can actually distribute that request for survey data and information. And then, of course, we'll have in-person meetings throughout the communities on the south side of Harrisburg. And so it'll be extraordinarily engaged. Actually, Adam will be responsible for that process as the planning coordinator for the implementation of that grant, of the planning grant. So there'll be more information to come, but the goal is to get as much feedback as possible, which means that we're going to use every venue and every tool possible to get survey information back to us. And then, of course, the in-person dialogue is going to be critical.
All right. Great, thanks. And the next question is for Adam. Adam, you had mentioned about community ambassadors. Is that still something that people can people still become a community ambassador? And what's the process for that?
Yeah, so the process is going to be, again, we have to wait until we receive the grant. And once we receive the grant, we will put out really kind of like a job posting that identifies the different responsibilities of the position. And so we'll kind of spread that far and wide in South Harrisburg. And then we will be really reviewing people's information and conducting small kind of one-on-one interviews with potential candidates, and then hope to have a handful of community ambassadors selected within the first couple months of the project, so they can be kind of on board with us throughout. So it will be a kind of like a traditional job interview, but we would be looking for people that are well connected in the community, and we'd like to get some younger people involved, as well as some of the folks that have been engaged a long time there, and the people that have been doing great work. So that there'll be more information on that if and when we receive the grant coming this winter.
All right, great. Thank you very much. The next question is for Jeffrey. Jeffrey, once the comprehensive plan is approved and finalized, what would be the next step? Is there a top priority that would be addressed first?
So the next step after the comprehensive plan is, I think, probably still a bit unknown at this point. Generally speaking, after a comprehensive plan is adopted, you then update your zoning code. So the zoning code is the legal document that implements the vision of the comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plan is in many ways a qualitative document that says, this is where we need to go, this is where we want to do. But the zoning code is the actual legal language that puts that into practice. So if we say we want, higher density along a corridor, then in our zoning code we create a zoning district and give it development standards relative to height or setbacks or things like parking requirements that then guide the new projects that are proposed for that area. So it may be that we roll straight into a new zoning code, even though our current zoning code we adopted in 2014. It was developed between 2008 and 2010. So it's getting a little older as a document, or we may decide to start directly engaging with neighborhoods on their own small area plans. The Tri-County Community Action Agency up on Derry Street does one for South Allison Hills. So they're one that's already kind of out there and active, but we'd like to start bringing a process to other neighborhoods so that they can themselves kind of figure out a planning regime for their neighborhood that's a bit more tailored to their specific needs.
Yeah, in a moment I'll jump in and say, I think we'll absolutely be doing both of those things. And the density bonus concept that we were just discussing with Nona, as well as a number of other amendments, are zoning code amendments. So we would be introducing those, and those would be some of the first things that would pass along with the comprehensive plan. So I would say commitment to affordable housing through changes to the zoning code, and then hopefully a commitment to additional area plans throughout the city, which would then allow us to take the big comprehensive vision and start looking at what it looks like neighborhood by neighborhood.
Okay, great. And just a reminder to everyone, the draft plan link can be found at harrisburgpa.gov/comp plan meeting. And for public comment, please email compplancomments@harrisburgpa.gov. Mayor, I think we have time for one more question.
Okay.
This is from Danny. He's concerned about the upcoming potential evictions in cold weather, the pandemic. He's saying that there have been around 350 evictions filed in Dauphin County since the beginning of the month. Is the city planning to address this looming crisis of evictions in the cold weather and during a pandemic?
Yeah, we've been in lockstep with the governor since the beginning of the pandemic in wanting to eliminate evictions and focus on making sure that we didn't add to our homelessness problem, add to people's concerns during a time that's very difficult. I think we have to coordinate this together. It has to be coordinated on the district justice level. It has to be coordinated through the state level. It's more than just the city, but we're firmly committed in the city of Harrisburg to helping people sort of work through this at this difficult time.
Okay, great. Yep, that's all the questions for now. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. This is just going to be the first of many, many conversations that you could tell tonight. Now, we did submit the grant for South Harrisburg, so that's been completed. And if it has, and there was good conversation at City Council. Once it is received, we can then begin that community conversation. But both the comprehensive plan and the zoning amendments related to affordable housing that we discussed today, those are not yet to the governing body. So they will be picked up here as we move into the fall. Also coming is a budget with a tremendous amount of new reforms in it geared towards community policing and community services. So it is an exciting time in Harrisburg, an exciting time as well for the public to be engaged. And with that, I want to say thank you for watching, and we will see you next week for another community conversation right here on Facebook Live.